today, we have 6 panelists from various chip segments with various function expertise, from industry analyst to procurement expert to product, R&D expert, to share with this audience about their view on this very hot topic. All right, so let's kick off. Before I dive down to the detailed panel discussion, let me give each of the panelists a 30-second to self-introduce their background and their company's industry sector they are before we start our Q&A panel discussion.
My name is Anthony Lay. Again, thanks for the invitation. Again, congratulations to 30 years. 30 years seems a long time, but we've all been around probably at least for that long. I started in the industry also roughly about 30 years ago, so we're about the same age in terms of experience. So thank you. I've been in flash memory since then. I started with AMD, eventually spun off to Spansion, went to a few other companies along the way. I'm currently with, as you can see, with my background, Macronix International. We are also a non-volatile memory company. So we do NOR flash, NAND flash, and ROM, right? And our markets go pretty much into every applications. One of my closest market I've been doing for probably since 2008 is automotive. So, and I'm glad we're kind of talking about automotive as well, because it's such a long process to get into, and it's hard when the market turns like this, and for the OEMs to react to it, it's pretty difficult, right? And we'll definitely get into that. But thank you again.
Okay, let's get started. At the May timeframe, when the new Qualcomm CEO was asked, what keeps you up at night? And he said, the supply chain. And it was a surprise to a lot of people back then. Many CEOs' name gets added into that list. So my first question for the panelists is, what is the current situation? What is really happening? I encourage the panelists to keep the mic on so that you can chip in anytime, and let's keep it live and debatable. All right, the mic is all yours.
This is Anthony. Just to add to yours and everyone else's. I agree wholeheartedly. If you look back at when COVID hit, for us, everyone was scared. They thought, everything's going to shut down. People aren't going to spend, especially automotive. They were the first to shut down their facilities. And luckily, I mean, not luckily, but fortunately, I think the market turned into, we're going to stay home. We're going to buy a lot of electronics. Gaming systems went up. PC went up because all the kids are, going to school virtually. Same thing with people working from home. So for us, at least, we were able to shift, our markets from automotive, whatever demand that was there, we were able to shift into the other markets. And I think as the automotive industry turned around, it was definitely one of the biggest hockey sticks I've ever seen. And so I think that it was a huge disruption to the entire ecosystem in the market. And now if you look at, sure, I think a lot of the technologies that goes into the processors and the PC, the processors and the MCUs, less and less, I think, shortage. I think people were able to kind of catch up. We also saw that the demand for the power ICs was going up. We sold our old fab to the Foxconn group, and I think they're going to turn around and turn that into a power IC fab, but that's going to take a long time, as we all know. And just like the iPhone shortage, it's not because of the processors or the flash memory, it's now due to the power management devices that's in there. And the same thing with the PC industry, right? The PC industry, they can't ship their demand. It's not because they don't have demand, it's because they just can't get the components, right? So same with us. We're seeing issues with back-end testing, packaging, substrate, that's just driving our lead times into 30 to 50 weeks. I know it sounds insane, right? You're like a year out. But even outside that market, which I just want to say it's kind of funny because my wife was looking at furniture and she can't get any furniture in for like 30, 40 weeks. Okay, so an entire market is being hit, not just a semiconductor, right?
I like all the panelists. It looks like it's true. It's all over the place, the shortage. But we talk about follow the topic. That is that how real are those demand? I think also one of the audience asked us a question, John Wan from Applied Material, is the same thing. It's really that if this supply is that going to be cause any oversupplies, after this whole shortages end, and yeah, how do we deal with that?
If I can jump in, I think one of the big topics that you start off, Brandon, early on was how long is this oversupply going to happen, right? I mean, we have a wide range, right? And I think you have to look at the markets, right? Some of the markets in terms of the consumer market, they're hoping. I think it's more of a hope that that oversupply is going to be short, like the next 6 months. And then you look at the extreme case, automotive, they're looking at 2023 or even beyond. Again, if we were bringing on 6-inch, 8-inch fabs right now, it will take 1.5 to 2 years, right, to qualify these things, right? And so to me, it really depends on the market that you're looking at. And we all know, we've been in this industry, when it goes this deep, everyone's trying to scramble to provide additional capacity. There will be an oversupply at some point, and the question is when, right?
Yeah,
What's your number, Anthony? What's your number in the memory market?
Number in terms of when do we think?
How long this shortage is going to last?
Yeah, our CEO Min Woo is kind of mentioned that we're looking into probably a year from now, Q3 of next year, right?
Well, our panelists seems not all synchronized in terms of exactly how many months or years this whole supply shortage is going to last. Maybe they came from different segments, they see different things. But one thing I feel is common is that this shortage is severe, right? So it's still remember that last March we have everybody try to buy toilet paper as much as possible when Costco was out of toilet paper. So I was kind of trying to make analogy, but then through what just discussion here, some of the thing is not like you want stocking up your inventory, is that you don't even find a place to do that, and the capacity build definitely going to take time, and that lagging is going to cause some sort of disruption when this end to our industry. But that is for us to think about a couple months later. This moment, with this severe shortage, I like to ask the panelists from your a different domain, what is the best plan right now to resolve the immediate issue in front of us?
I'll add a little bit to this discussion. I think for us, going back to Hong's first statement in terms of redesigning our chips, right? For us, in the short term, I think the question is, what are we doing in the short term? I think some of the things that we're doing is, just like Nana said, we're doing LTAs, long-term agreements with partners. And the key here is the relationship and the partners, right? So we have partners that we do this with. And at the same time, if their market shift, we know ahead of time, as opposed to how the market was before with just in time, right? JIT just doesn't work anymore. And so now we have definitely a much longer visibility, right, into our end customers' forecasts. Before it was, 1 quarter, in some cases, or 1 month. Okay, now we're seeing 6 months, a year, right? So they're opening their books to us. So that relationship is great. In turn, we can turn around to our resource suppliers, right, and say, hey, we're signing LTAs with you because we have an LTA with our customers. So it's the entire supply chain then becomes healthier in that way. The other thing is, my CEO, he's gone through this, for many decades. He's afraid, of course, the market turns, okay, just like we all are. And you don't want to be the one building up a new fab when it turns, right? And some companies have been, stuck with the pants down in those cases, right? And you're out of the market at that point. So it is a very strategic investment for us. Okay, so we've already announced that. But in addition, we're looking at the designs of our own products and say, hey, what is some of these markets need that we can strip out, so then we can make the die smaller, so therefore we can get more yield, more dies on a wafer, right? And so we're doing that in the short term. We can turn around a product within 3 months in that way, right, to get 20% more capacity in that way. And 20% is quite a lot, right, on the same technology. Not necessary for us going to lower geometry, but also just a redesign. So yeah, I think overall those are things that we're doing in the short term, right, to help our end customers and in the short term. I think, like, for us, we own our own fab. We control a lot of our supply chain. I think for us it's a little bit easier, right? One of the term I heard recently, before, people would talk about design for manufacturing. Now they're actually doing design for availability, right? I mean, that's kind of like the new hot word nowadays, right?
That's refreshing. The ideas pop up from all directions, try to solve the current issues. Really, the redesign is such a new concept that it's going to trigger a lot of disruptions, not because of the economic shock, but coming to the whole design, and that's an interesting aspect to look at it. And the other aspect Nana mentioned, I think, is come down to say, hey, during crisis, you see your true friend, right? So the partnership you built over years now is come to help, and to really provide that needed buffer in order to rescue us from there. Now, these are among all the private companies, partners working, try to solve that problem. How do you guys see the government come in and be able to help? Because the supply chain is always a cross-border geo kind of graphical issues. How do you see that?
To me, it's kind of interesting how the semiconductor industry moved out of the U.S. right a few decades ago into Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, and eventually now a lot of it is going to China. And now the U.S., because of all the shortages, they're saying, "Hey, we'll give you tax breaks to open up fabs." I think to add to Robert's comment, finally, I think the government is waking up, going, "Hey, this is something that the U.S. got to get involved with, because it will affect our supply chain. We got to be able to build something here, right? And have less reliance on the other countries, and kind of spread out." So to me, that's a good thing for the U.S. One thing I do want to add is in terms of global governments and their influences, especially on the automotive side. As some of you may recall, back in January this year, the German government did come over to Taiwan and try to work very closely with the Taiwanese semiconductor industry, because Germany is so reliant on automotive, right? And really urged them to start working with the German automotive industry. And I think, again, if the governments can have partnerships with industries, I think that will definitely help a long ways. In terms of, can governments pass laws and restrictions and stuff where I think one of the question was, between China and the US. I don't know if that's good for the industry. I think if anything that will hurt the overall industry, right? But I think if the governments, and at the most part, stay out of our way, so we can actually, work together to get things going. I think that's the best thing. I think less government in this case is probably better. At least that's my feeling.
Why automotive is hit hardest?
At least for us in the automotive, what happened again, the hockey stick in terms of the market turnaround. But what also exacerbated the whole thing was that, I don't know if you remember Snowmageddon that happened in Texas.
Yeah.
Right. So that took down, these fabs, and when they go down, you can't just turn them back up, right? And they take months, right? And a lot of these are automotive, so there were contamination, there were issues. Okay, and that was really start of it early on this year as the automotive industry tried to turn. In addition, I think, the Renesas fab also with the automotive MCU exacerbated that issue, right? And now we're kind of playing through that at this point, getting all these fabs back up to a healthy level. And to me, again, going back to demand, I think both Emily and Nana agrees that the electrification portion is growing. So prior to the Biden administration, there wasn't a lot of interest in electric cars, right? When Biden took over, I think there was a lot of companies finally said, hey, EVs make sense because one, socially, the world's kind of moving to that, right? And then you start hearing for a long time, I mean, like, we've been in this industry for a while, Jim, you and I. Ford and GM have said, we're kind of into this EV thing, but we're not really sure. But earlier this year, they both flipped, right? And they said, hey, we're putting lots of money into EVs, autonomous driving. We're turning our factories into, building more electrical cars. And then look at all the China startups that are just pumping out EVs. So for sure, the demand is just exploding. And I think if you look at just, socially, people are trying to move away from combustion engine, right? Personally, where I live, almost every car on my block has a Tesla, right? So, to me, the trend is there. Now, how does the automotive industry try to catch up to that, right? I think they will. It's just not going to be right away, right? They can't build enough electronics to fulfill the demand. And in addition, you've got governmental regulations that are saying, I think China is probably the strictest, saying, they're probably the first to say by, I forgot what year it was, 2030, all cars will be EVs, right? California is kind of moving towards that. And I think eventually, a lot of the European countries will too. So yeah, I don't see demand for electronics and cars going down. If anything, it's just going to keep exploding, right? The number of sensors that's in there, memory. I mean, that's great for us because the amount of memory is just going up, and that's driving our NOR flash demand. And for a while, everyone thought NOR flash is going to die, right? It was going to go away, but there's still a lot of health in there. So yeah, I think that drives a lot, right, from the automotive side.
My next question is really to Jim and also Anthony, is that auto industries like this, can you brief what the memory market will look like? Is that still relevant on this shortage? Do you see any choking point in the memory market?
Yeah, flash is a little bit, or at least the market that I'm in, non-volatile flash, non-volatile memory. It's a little bit different from DRAM and such. Our kind of demand swings aren't as high or low as DRAM for sure. So, and then a few years ago, there was a lot of consolidation in our industry as well, right? Because our industry pretty much capped out in probably about $2 to $4 billion in terms of NOR flash. And so a lot of the big players, outside of us, started to move into other markets. So right now we don't have a lot of competitors, and in fact I think it's a healthy market for us because we can meet demand, and we're not trying to kill each other, right? But I think in the DRAM market, of course, we go hand in hand with DRAM. That's still huge, wide open, right? Because besides the Korean companies, Micron here, US, the Chinese companies are just growing leaps and bounds, right? And so to me, that is the biggest risk for the DRAM. Jim, I'm pretty sure you can add to that, but yeah, for the NOR flash, it's healthy. NAND, we don't play in the broader NAND market that goes into SSDs and such. That to me is also synonymous to DRAM in terms of fluctuation in cycles, right? And because they're always shrinking technology, they're always trying to squeeze more gigabits, or I don't even know, now it's terabits per density anymore. So yeah, I think for us, our market's pretty solid. It will swing up and down. We don't have a lot of competitors. I think it's a pretty healthy market for us. Yeah, Jim, I think definitely in infotainment, you got the large SSDs that are in there, and also telematics. We're seeing demand for these 3D maps, coming in for NAND. DRAM, I will tell you, working with a lot of our partners, when you go into autonomous driving, especially with the whole AI capability, they're developing, guys like NVIDIA, right? Developing HBM for automotive, right? Because you got to do real-time processing on there. So yeah, I think in the next 5-10 years, the demand, of course, for NOR flash, NAND flash will grow, but for even DRAM, I think DRAM is going to explode in that market because of all the processing power, being able to do real-time processing that they need, right?
But the DRAM that looks big today is going to look awfully small in 10 years.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that to conclude that session, I like to give each panelist a 1 minute or so to kind of summarize as a last word to this session.
I think through this, we've kind of talked about is build that relationship with your supplier, with your customer. I think when you do that, coming out of this shortage, your business will be definitely a lot better. And hopefully their memory isn't short-lived either. So, you continue to have that relationship long-term. So to me, again, this is an opportunity, I think, for all of us who's in the semiconductor industry and you have customers, focus on the business that will help you grow, right? As opposed to kind of short-term businesses, right? If you can, and I think a lot of us are in that kind of driver's seat at this point, and then really build your business around that. I'm in marketing, so for me, that's what we do on a daily basis: is continue to build that relationship with our customers and our partners, especially the ecosystem. We're all dealing with allocation. Even in marketing, we're dealing with customers coming to us and trying to find parts and allocation. We feed that back to our headquarters, and I think that's we'll continue to do that. But at the same time, that gives us an opportunity also to work with who we think are strong partners, and also get into customers that we haven't been in before, right? So yeah, I think really focus on that.
I noticed the question coming up, continue coming. There's a lot of questions in the audience that we won't have time to accommodate all. I think the debate for this shortage is going to continue. I'm not sure when this really going to be end. The panelists are not 100% agree. One thing I'm sure is that this discussion will come to the end in a minute. So thank you. Thank you all the panelists, and thank you all the CASPA behind the thing to make this event possible. Thank you. I'll hand over to William.